No stalking, no warning. An explosive surge erupts from the power of an apex predator. With a body mass measured in the thousands of pounds and pinpoint precision, every close approach becomes a life or death gamble. When territory is breached, the pursuit stops being a chase and shifts into a direct face-off. Across a brutal frozen world, strength exists to set boundaries and restore order. And a split-second delay alone can decide who truly holds dominance. On Arctic sea ice, seals are nearly half invisible residents. With bodies weighing a few hundred pounds, a thick layer of blubber that holds heat, and extremely sensitive whiskers, they can sense vibrations in the dark water. Their lives revolve around a few small breathing holes on the ice, fragile windows linking the frigid ocean to the air outside. Those breathing holes turn what seems like an empty ice surface into a hidden map of survival. The polar bear, weighing more than 1,300 pounds, is a predator patient enough to read that map. It moves close to the snow, following the faintest signs. When it finds a breathing hole, the bear stops completely. No noise, no rushing, only waiting. A seal can hold its breath for up to 15 minutes, but the moment it rises to take air is also the moment a split-second strike can decide the hunt right there on the ice. When a seal rests or basks on drifting ice, the strategy changes. The bear uses its white coat to blend into the snow and skillfully uses ice ridges to block the seal's view. It advances slowly, narrowing the distance with steady control. And when only a few dozen feet remain, all of that power is released in a short burst of speed, deciding everything before the seal can slide back into the water. Even as a master hunter, the polar bear's success rate is still very low. Yet seals make up nearly 80% of its diet. That is why every hunt is a survival gamble, where patience and precision define the line between making it through and coming up short. On the ice-covered sea, there are no fences, and sometimes the rival wears the same color coat. As the ice thins, food becomes scarce, and polar bears are forced to cross paths along familiar travel routes. The moment an adult male appears, with a massive frame, often nearly twice the size of a female, the few dozen feet between them becomes an immediate test of survival. These confrontations rarely begin with contact. First comes assessment. The front half rises higher, and the steps slow into a wide arc to claim the wind and the best position along the ice ridge. Heavy breathing, a low rumble, and the steady thud of paws on snow send the message without hesitation. This space is claimed. If neither side backs off, the two powerful bodies close in through short clinch and push exchanges, measuring endurance more than raw strength, until one loses position and yields to conserve energy. When seals become scarce because the ice breaks up early, pressure builds on the more vulnerable bears. For a mother, the tension reaches its peak. The appearance of an unfamiliar male makes her turn instantly to shield, guiding her young toward rougher ice bands or open sightlines, places where defense depends on distance and terrain. On that unforgiving ice, the one that lasts is not the most aggressive, but the one that knows when to move forward and when to pull back in time. Beluga whales are master communicators of the cold northern seas. At about 10 to 15 feet long and weighing over 3,000 pounds, they travel in pods and constantly produce rising and falling sounds, as if carrying on conversations. Belugas often return to shallow waters to shed skin, raise calves, and avoid the open ocean. Places that seem safe, yet in reality always carry hidden risk. From ice-covered rocky shores, the polar bear watches in silence. It reads the rhythm of the water, studies the pod's movement, and waits for the moment a beluga is pushed close to a sandbar so it can suddenly rush down from above. But the sea is the whale's domain. With superior speed and agility, the beluga slips away, leaving the bear with an unsuccessful hunt. Without giving up, the polar bear changes tactics. Even though it can swim for hours in freezing water, it understands that deep water is not its home ground. When the sea surface freezes, belugas are forced to seek open water holes to breathe. The bear positions upwind and memorizes where those openings are. No need to be faster, only to be in the right place. The encounter ends quickly, providing enough energy for the polar bear to last many more days, even weeks. But belugas remain a rare possibility. When the ice shifts, that temporary order breaks apart, and the survival cycle continues. No true winner, only the one that remains. Along the dark sands of the Chukchi coastline, a massive concentration of living weight takes over the shoreline. After repeated dives for clams, walruses gather into dense haulouts. Thousands of individuals press tightly together, forming a nearly motionless wall of bodies. An adult male can weigh more than 2,500 pounds, with tusks over 3 feet long, both a tool for survival and a signal of status. As sea ice retreats farther offshore, the polar bear loses the advantage of cover. On open sand, each step in temperatures around 50 degrees Fahrenheit increases the risk of overheating and drains precious energy. A thick, slick hide nearly 2 inches deep, combined with an adult male's overwhelming mass, makes control a losing equation. The bear does not rush in. It watches, moves closer to assess, then backs away when the balance has not shifted in its favor. A rare opening appears only at the edge of the herd. If the target makes it into the water in time, the bear turns away at once. On this thin boundary, survival belongs to the one that stays efficient, disciplined, and knows when to leave. Along granite cliffs rising more than 100 feet, seabirds gather in dense nesting colonies, turning bare rock faces into scattered pockets of energy. Eggs and chicks rest on narrow ledges, a modest but steady source of protein during summers when the ocean is largely free of ice. The polar bear climbs the steep, rocky slopes with remarkable patience. Broad paws and claws, nearly 2 inches long, grip the ledges, keeping a massive body balanced across hazardous terrain. When the seabirds burst upward in panic, an eruption of sound and feathers, any attempt to drive them off quickly becomes pointless. For the polar bear, each egg provides about 150 calories, far less than the rich fat of seals. But in summer warmth near 60 degrees Fahrenheit, those small rewards can still matter for staying alive. Here, survival is no longer about seeking a single big payoff. It is about accepting smaller gains, repeated over time, to endure one more season on bare rock that once belonged to ice and snow. On the coastal gravel strip, a few gray wolf silhouettes appear at the edge of the polar bear's view. This is where territories overlap, and food becomes the reason both species have to calculate. On Arctic coastal gravel bars, encounters between polar bears and gray wolves rarely become a direct clash. An adult male polar bear, weighing more than 1,300 pounds, holds a clear advantage in sheer power. The wolf pack, smaller, relies on speed, coordination, and numbers. They keep a measured distance, far enough to avoid a decisive hit, close enough to apply steady pressure. In temperatures around 20 degrees Fahrenheit, the wolves circle along the outer edge, forcing the bear to stay alert and spend energy. The polar bear does not react in haste. It keeps a low center of gravity, protects vulnerable areas, and gradually shifts back towards the waterline, where open space limits close approach. Here, survival is not decided by the first move. Both sides wait until the cost outweighs whatever benefit could be gained. The honey badger charges into the hunt without scouting first, as if fear has never existed in its survival dictionary. That small body carries a stubborn kind of power, ready to stand up to the most formidable ambush hunters of the savannah. Every step closer is a direct challenge, where reaction speed and nerve are pushed to the limit. So what makes a small animal capable of forcing an entire savanna to stay cautious? In the brush, cobras and vipers lie hidden like reflex machines. They carry potent venom, and an attack in 0.3 seconds can also project venom out to about 8 feet, enough to frighten most animals. But for the honey badger, this is simply another test of nerve and adaptability. As the honey badger moves in, the snake immediately climbs a tree to avoid being cornered. But the honey badger is also a master climber. The pressure rises fast, the snake loses its grip, and it drops to the ground. The honey badger reads the landing point, closes the distance in an instant, and the snake is quickly forced into a losing position. What makes this hunter truly stand out is its natural resistance to venom. Even if it is affected by part of a dose, the honey badger's nervous system can recover in about 1 to 2 hours. That window is like a short sleep to regain strength. Then it gets back up, continues the pursuit, and finishes dealing with what remains. In the wild, honey is a dense, high-energy reward, and it is rarely free. Reaching that resource is not blind recklessness, but a carefully calculated mission. For the honey badger, spatial memory works like a living map, letting it remember the exact location of a hive for months and return with ease. When the air turns cooler, the raid begins. The honey badger uses its powerful front legs to dig into hollow tree trunks, creating an entry path without rushing straight into the main guard line. Instantly, the bees respond with a collective biological defense system, piling on pressure with intensely painful stings. This is where skin, about 0.25 inches thick, matters, helping it endure far better. In just a few well-timed seconds, it reaches the most energy-rich honey. What stands out is that it does not get greedy. It does not linger or stay too long. It collects only the best part, then slips back into the brush. The key to success is not only endurance, but the ability to optimize time. Across the African savanna, hyenas move like greedy ghosts, holding their power through harsh pack tactics. With bite force strong enough to break through tough material, a group of 3 to 10 hyenas can overwhelm even the largest targets, yet they often pause with careful calculation when a honey badger stands its ground. As the circle tightens and rough, Laughing calls echo around the brush. The honey badger shows the attitude of an animal that refuses to be intimidated, backed by a sharp, pungent odor released from its defensive glands. Its thick, shaggy coat adds another layer of protection, letting it brace and defend with relentless intensity. Hyenas, practical hunters by nature, quickly solve the survival equation. The small amount of modest payoff from such a tiny animal is not worth the trade-off. The standoff often ends in a heavy, respectful silence as the pack spreads out and gives way, allowing the king without a crown of reckless courage to continue its solitary journey. On the savanna, the lion is a symbol of pure pressure. One step forward can make many species hesitate and back away. But the honey badger does not see a king. It sees an opponent that must be pushed back through sheer boldness. When facing a lion, the honey badger does not rush straight in. It keeps changing direction to avoid exposing a weak angle. Step forward, stop, then cut sideways without warning. The pattern becomes hard to read, forcing the lion to slow down and reset. Thick, loose skin lets the honey badger twist and pivot with surprising flexibility, sometimes startling the lion in the process. Even when several lions move closer, the honey badger still refuses to retreat. It raises its coat and lets out a harsh warning call. A single honey badger can keep up this intensity for hours without tiring. That attitude builds a psychological barrier, leaving the lions unsettled, unable to understand why such a small animal dares to challenge them. Irritation grows over time, and the defensive odor adds to the discomfort until the lions lose interest. In the end, they pause and choose to move away. In nature, some confrontations do not need a winner, only enough trouble to make them not worth continuing. And the honey badger, the animal that does not recognize fear, is often the one that keeps the initiative. Nature has given the honey badger a set of rare biological gifts. Those advantages shape one of the savanna's most fearless and unpredictable survivors. This time, the honey badger turns its attention to a massive South African oryx with straight horns like blades, often close to 47 inches long. With just one mistimed approach, the oryx snaps into a powerful defensive response. But for the honey badger, that is not necessarily failure. It is more like a quick test to read the opponent's speed and blind spots. And once it understands the rhythm of that reaction, it is ready to push the challenge to the limit. At only about 30 pounds, the honey badger will even move in close to an African elephant that can weigh up to 13,000 pounds. It does not try to overpower the giant. Instead, it creates disruption and forces the opponent to lose focus. Each forceful shove can send it sliding a few feet. but its flexible body and thick skin help soften the impact and allow it to get back up almost immediately. The message becomes clear. Sometimes extreme boldness, fast recovery, and perfectly timed reflexes are enough to make even a massive opponent rethink the distance. The leopard is a big cat known for sharp intelligence, masterful camouflage, and formidable strength. It hunts with absolute patience, stalking in near silence. But hunger does not always allow it to choose an easy target. And then the honey badger appears, forcing every cold calculation to change. The encounter quickly tightens as the savanna's most unruly fighter takes only a light scrape on the leg. But for the leopard, it looks like an opening. The leopard keeps shifting its angle of approach, trying to exploit that weak spot with probing strikes. The honey badger reacts with fierce resistance, twisting and turning non-stop to break free from control. In the end, the leopard fails to gain the advantage it expected. Elsewhere in the brush, a young leopard, still inexperienced, creeps toward a juvenile that has strayed from its mother. A distress call flashes out in an instant. One decisive rush and a perfectly timed check leave the predator with no room to continue. Within seconds, that patch of cover becomes a no-go zone the leopard will not risk again. It becomes a costly lesson about limits and about the kind of calculated risk a leopard must learn before it can truly grow into its role. A tortoise is often seen as a fortress that is hard to break through, thanks to a shell as tough as armor. Even though it moves slowly and steadily, very few predators can overpower it. It does not only hunt by chance, it can also track the trail of a feast after wild dogs move on. The honey badger appears quietly, gathers the high-energy leftovers, and slips away fast. Instead of relying on brute force, it uses a technical approach, trying to flip the tortoise onto its back to expose the softer underside. With strong jaws and near limitless persistence, it works along the shell's edge near the legs, tail, or neck, until it opens a gap large enough to get access to the inside. When facing a large leopard tortoise, the honey badger uses its front limbs, with claws longer than 2 inches, focusing on scraping and breaking the weakest connections. Rather than trying to crush the entire shell like many other predators, the honey badger chooses anatomical intelligence to find the exact weak point. And in the end, even a solid shield has to give ground to the savanna's most relentless survivor. Between drifting ice and cutting winds, survival does not belong to the strongest, but to the
Мама
one that knows
пробивалась
how to
через
wait,
лед.
adapt, and
В
take the
воде.
right risks at the right moment. If viewers want to keep following these true stories from a harsh
Для нас.
wild world, they can press like to support the journey. And when they hit subscribe, the next chapters of the Arctic will not pass by without them. Because every follow is another step that helps nature be heard for longer.
Мы белые медведи. Мама не хотела, чтобы мы В том году... угрозой.